If there's any questions, feel free to toss them into the chat window. I'll be able to monitor both. We'll have some show and tell today towards the end, looking at some author websites and kind of showing the examples and the ideas that we're going to talk about today and kind of seeing those in practice. I have a couple people who are indie authors and a couple people who are kind of larger authors. Obviously, David Sedaris or something like that is pretty big author. And the other girl who does the Divergent series, we'll take a look at her website as well. But if anybody has any specific questions, feel free to just toss those into the chat. I tried to make this not a massive lecture like I normally do. And hopefully that can lead to a shorter talk and everybody can be free to go out into the gray weather outside. I'll go ahead and hit the present button. Is everybody seeing my screen? Let me know if there's any issues. Give it a moment here. I'll thumbs up, everybody. Oh, Diana wants to know what a honeypot is. She doesn't read enough spy thrillers. All right, Diana, just Google that one. You'll get it. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So the web pages, the idea today we're going to be talking about is leveling up. And we're going to be talking a lot about thinking about your website as opposed to doing, because once you get committed to starting a website and you get all the basics up onto the website, doing those things is one thing, but understanding why you're doing those things is another. And I think that's what we're going to focus on today, is the idea of what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. I'm very much against just doing stuff for the sake of doing things, because we have limited time. And we'll talk, an idea of focusing ourselves, understanding what we're trying to achieve with our webpage, and setting that up to work in the proper manner, so that we don't have to spend as much time maintaining those things, and that we have something that is compelling, that feeds into our overall mission as individual authors, each and every one of us as individual little businesses. How do we make a compelling product that gets people to buy or subscribe or stay around and and be part of our community? All right, so let's go ahead. So the first thing I always like to do is show this one slide. It's been a big slide that I keep coming back to, is all this idea of the digital author ecosystem, all the various components of things that you have to do, that we see other authors doing, that are common things that you hear within the industry, especially in the indie community, of all the various things that you have to do. You don't have to do everything, but there's a few things on this list that we have to do, and we should learn to do them well before we begin to commit to other things. And today we're going to be talking about the websites, but it will bleed a little bit into newsletters, a little bit into social media, a little bit into lead magnets, because the website is being that ground base for all of us as businesses, as little author businesses. It is kind of our home base, and we want to make sure that is compelling and useful as much as possible. All right, so just a couple of assumptions. I'm just going to assume that everybody basically has a website, or they're going to have a website very, very soon, whether it's a WordPress or a Weebly or some type of Squarespace or Wix option as well, that they have that in place, or they know they're going to put that in place. And what I want to do is have everybody refer back to some of the earlier talks. Edward, feel free to turn off your webcam and mute yourself if you'd like to. Just to go back and review the 101, the 102 website lectures that I've given in the past. We talked a lot about, how to set up the hosting, how to make those choices, the design, email capture, banners, things of those, the nuts and bolts of the website. I have those linked here. They're on this whole talk is already on the members website. And I'll go ahead and put that into the chat right now. writers.coop.com/members. So if you click on these links as well, it'll take you there to watch the video. You can look at the slides, kind of, refresh yourself on what those things did. Also, I did another talk earlier last year at the beginning of the pandemic about, kind of a more advanced topics, talking about plugins, talking about other tools you can put into your website that makes it even more appealing or more interesting to your readers or your fans or the community, whoever you're trying to bring into your your writing world. And I have those linked there as well. So I really encourage everybody to go look at those. So we're going to talk a little bit above that, kind of like if you think about that was all the nuts and bolts stuff. This is the big ideas type of talk. So we're going to be talking about a couple concepts, idea of what you're trying to do with your website, and then going into building your newsletter, driving people into your marketing funnel, and grouping your work in the best way possible on your website to be as compelling as you can. All right. We'll look into design considerations, and then we'll look into some advanced design considerations, kind of trends that have come forward. And Linda asked for, what are the kind of trends that are coming up? If you're going to be doing your website for the first time, or if you're thinking about doing a redesign soon, that is, we'll bring up those ideas and what those things look like, and then we'll go through a bunch of kind of show and tell examples at the end. Diana says chatbots. Are you talking about a little chat box that opens up on the right side of your window and then you can talk to? Is that what you're referring to as a chatbot, or are you referring to chatbots as something that's in Facebook Messenger? And while you type that, either. Okay. I think she's asleep or going. Okay, my baby is asleep right upstairs, so I will have to keep my voice down just a little bit. So with respect to chatbots, I'm not going to be talking about those. They're kind of an advanced idea, and I don't think that maybe is fit for here. So maybe we can talk about that after the talk, but I don't know if that fits here. John asked if I have a baby cam. Of course I have a baby cam. I couldn't function without a baby cam. So the next thing is I want to just refresh the idea of the content matrix. I've talked about this for the last year and a half, this idea of looking at your catalog of what you're writing in the standpoint of a matrix, looking at it top to bottom, how things flow from left to right, where are your lead magnets, and where is your focus. And I've done a lot of talking about this, but I really encourage people to do this exercise, to put all their books out. I say cut them out and do it on like a kitchen table, and you can kind of see how things flow, just as an idea to refresh yourself on how people will move through all your writing, where you should focus your efforts on, and how those things will now, and as we go through this talk, how that will reflect on your website. How do you do that? How do you square your, where do you put all your time? Where's your focus? Which squares do you focus on? So again, I just wanted to refresh this, a little bit of a refresher, but I'll probably be referring to this throughout the talk. Next thing we want to do is a little bit of a catalog considerations. So there's beginners out there, a couple of people who have just a few books, a couple of people have a medium catalog, something like myself, someone who has a big catalog like Linda and Susan. Those guys have a lot of things in their tool. They have a lot of content, right? Depending on how much content you have will determine the presentation on your website. It'll determine what type of content you're trying to produce and where your focus is on marketing. And depending on where you are and as you move forward, I used to be a beginner. Now I'm kind of in a medium size, and hopefully maybe in the next year or two, I'll start to get into a larger catalog. How and where do I need to put my efforts, and what do I need to do? And how does that change over time? So we'll be talking about that today. Next thing we want to think about is our marketing channels. Top line is readers. Readers come from various places, right? They can read your book in person. They can come from social media. Maybe they come from some type of giveaway site like BookFunnel. Maybe they came from a newsletter swap that you shared with another author. There's a lot of different ways readers can find you. Okay, when they find you, you want them to perform an action. You don't want them to just run away. Now, a lot of people will just, quote unquote, run away, and that's fine. Maybe they're not your readers. But if they do stay and they do want to do something, you want to give them that action to do, whether it's to come to your website, go buy a book, sign up to your newsletter, like your social media page. You want them to do something. All right. We want to think about that with respect to our website. When they come to our website, we want them to do something. Okay. And what is that thing we want them to do? And how do we make that a compelling thing for them to initiate that action? Okay. So going back to it, we're going to be focusing on the websites today. Okay. So what is your website trying to achieve? Well, it's very simple. We want to get people onto our newsletter. We want to link to our books and all the various stores that they're available at. We want to provide additional content. Some people do, and depending on what you're writing and how much of that writing you have, you may need to produce additional content like blogs, video, audio, things of that nature. So more about who you are, so a little bio about yourself, and then all the ways they can connect to you. And when we go through the examples a little bit later, you'll see these ideas reflected in various ways. And there's no perfect way to do it, and each and every one of us has, different sensibilities and different expectations and different things that we like to see, and that's absolutely fine. And what we'll see with the examples is a lot of authors doing these 5 things, but in different ways. And some people, really focus on one thing. Some people focus on all of them. And that's up to you, and that's your design considerations. And there's no wrong way to do it. You just want to make sure that you're hitting these key points. Or if you're not hitting a key point, have a reason why you're not doing it. Right? I just want to focus on my newsletter. I don't care about anything else. Right? If that's your focus, great. Understand that that's your focus. We just want to have reasons behind the things that we're doing. So the first thing, are you a new writer? If you are a new writer, you want to ask yourself, are you a genre writer? Like I'm writing horror, urban fantasy, romance, whatever it might be. Or are you kind of like a memoirist? Are you going to run out of content after 1 or 2 books? Or are you a new genre writer who's going to write more books? You're going to write 10, 20, 30 books. Who are you and what are you doing? Are you writing scientific stuff with sci-fi, but also some adventure things? Those things may not make a lot of sense. And so you may need to consider what you're doing there with respect to what your website is conveying. What is your focus, right? What do I do with only one thing to sell? That's a huge question that always comes up. And what do I do with my website when I only have 1 or 2 things to sell, right? That's always a scary thing. How do I give away something when I only have one thing to sell? And we've talked about that in the past. We've talked about producing lead magnets. We'll talk a little bit in the next couple of slides on things you can do to garner attention and garner interest to achieve the things that we want to do with our website. Next thing you want to do is you want to prioritize additional content like blogs, videos, interviews, things that you're doing that's really fun, and also write the next book. So I have like a little bit of an example. I'm in this situation here as a small writer with my podcast. We have our podcast that we're doing on homeschooling, and we are producing these kind of resource guides for parents who are going through kinder and first grade level homeschooling. And those tend to do, in the secular community, they tend to do around the world studies. And so we're producing resource guides for all the various contents and areas around the world of books, movies, documentaries, videos to watch for various countries, things of that nature. So we're kind of bringing an aggregator of information, and then we're selling those to our community and hopefully to new listeners and readers. We only have one of them done. We're about to finish the second one. And my wife's been asking me, like, what do? We only have one thing. And it's like, it's okay. We need to get a lead magnet. Once we have the second one up, we'll then have something for them to go into. And I've been explaining to her the content matrix when you only have 1 or 2 things there, right? And how does our website going to reflect that type of stuff? So I've actually been going through this exercise with my wife on my other side project, and not necessarily in my author project. I've been doing this with her, and I've had to educate her about lead magnets and workflow. How does the reader flow through? How are these these families going to flow through these resource guides? How are they going to move from one to the next, and how will our website reflect that? So I'm actually going through this funny thing right now. Next thing is, are you a mature writer? Right, I've got content for days. The question to you is your catalog coherent? Right, does it flow? Are there ways that you can cross-sell, or are you hopping too many genres? Right. And what do I do with my website in order to effectively convey my giant catalog in a thoughtful and focused manner? I think the answer that we'll get into this is that we want to learn about focusing ourselves, and we'll show in the example websites how people are focusing their writing and focusing what they're showing on their website to just a few things that they know is their best, right? Because we have this issue of marketing versus writing versus maintenance, and always that new fancy shiny object out there. Like, for example, Heidi keeps messaging me about TikTok and all this type of stuff. So it's the new shiny object for her, right? I'm waiting for her to type in the chat. Here it comes. So there's always a new shiny object. We always have this this paralysis analysis that we always run into. And I have a link there to the Wikipedia page on that idea that there's so many things out there that we have to do. And it can be paralyzing to know which one you're going to do because you're afraid you're going to make the wrong decision, right? The real answer is we need to focus our messaging, focus your marketing activities until you know it works, because you only have so much time. Like, for example, I have about 60 minutes a day where I get access to a computer, right? Everything else is on my phone. And if I need to write my book, I need to do it in that very narrow period of time. I need to do all my marketing activities during that time. And I can't afford to spend a ton of other time chasing other ideas or, new shiny objects. I need to know what works. So that's really what I focus on. And I think most of us know that we can't spend 5-6 hours a day working on our writing. Some of us may have that luxury, but most of us don't, right? So what are we going to do? If you do a little bit of everything, you're going to accomplish nothing. So I'm a big fan of just focusing on what you need to do. Good example of that is Chipotle. I always like to bring up Chipotle. If you go to McDonald's, you got like a million things to order. They're really good at like managing those million things. But if you go into Chipotle, it's really just a couple things, and they're just putting a couple things together. Mod Pizza is another good example of that for a local business. It's just pizza, and there's just they have a million different combinations, but it's just one thing, right? So I always like to simplify the product messaging in order to do that thing really well, right? I'd rather do something really well than to do okay on a bunch of things, right? That's one of the reasons why I've pulled back from social media as much as I have, and I've really just focused on my newsletter because that's really where I can put my time and effort, and that's where I've seen a lot of growth, and I've been able to focus on something and actually make that successful. So how do we do this with our website? Everything goes back to our website. So we want to focus on building our newsletter, driving people into our marketing funnels. That means capturing people, keeping them there if they're interested in what we're doing, and then grouping our work in the best way possible so that when somebody does find us, that it makes sense for them to take that next action. All right. And obviously the Mandalorian says, obviously, Matthew, this is the way. All right. So let's start. What are we talking about? Let's focus on building the newsletter, and we'll show in the example section that almost every author has a newsletter they're trying to build. Some people have more focus on it. Some people have less. I think in the indie world, it's probably the most important thing you can do right now. Especially with a lot of the churn on social media, a lot of the frothing there. The newsletter is probably the safest place where you can put a lot of your effort. And I'll go through some examples of what that kind of looks like. When somebody comes to your website, you don't want to waste the web traffic, right? Obviously, if they're not interested, they were going to come and go anyways. But you don't want somebody to come to your website who wants to stay and learn more about you to just bounce because you didn't do a good job. Right. So you need to ask the question, who's coming to your website and what are they doing there? Are they coming from your blog? Are you writing book reviews? Did they read about your book somewhere? Did they come from social media? How did they get there? Right. Where are you putting in the effort? So some of us do a lot of effort on social media. Like Tony does a really good job on Facebook. So if she's getting any web traffic, it's probably coming, or it's likely coming from her books, her social media presence, and maybe a few other things, right? So, okay, these people are coming from social media. How do you capture them? And what is the interest? And where did they come from? And what link did they click on, right? So those are important considerations you want to make. Where are you putting in your effort? And how can you get them to come? All right. Next thing you're going to do is don't waste the chance to capture those readers. Obviously, you want to have clear thinking on your website. Clear thinking on your website. Simplify the presentation and focus your efforts. Super important. Don't waste the time. So from building your newsletter, you need the email opt-in. And we'll see that in the examples of where people put that. You want to do some giveaway content. I do some book funnel giveaways, and then more advanced kind of things are autoresponder sequences, and we won't talk about those today. Those can be kind of scary, but I've been beginning to integrate those into a lot of the things I'm doing, and I think I'll have a talk in a few months about specifically the bottom two bullets, the book funnel giveaways and the autoresponder sequences. So I use personally BookFunnel, and in parentheses, so does everybody else. I'm on Chris Fox's newsletter. I follow him as one of my authors, and he does sci-fi, kind of fun sci-fi stuff, so I'm kind of interested in that. And he just sent out an early link to his ARC, or to to his readership about a new book he's writing, and he had a book funnel link in there. So even the big type of authors are using book funnel. They're not using some proprietary special thing. They're paying $10 to $15 a month to use book funnel in order to funnel their free giveaways or to send out content to their readers ahead of time. And that's something I do as well. What can you share? Obviously, free book, novella, short stories. We've talked a lot about different ideas that you can do to share. And this is very important for people who only have one or two things that they've written. How can you expand on other ideas within your space? If you're a memoirist, there's, I think Linda Kurth is one of our members. She's up in Mount Vernon. She writes about divorce from a Christian perspective. And then there's a little bit of domestic violence issues there too, I think. And she's written blog posts and some novellas, and she has interviews and she has talks that she gives about it and her experiences. And she kind of wraps in this additional content around her memoir, right? Which I think just got picked up by a small press. And so she's beginning to do that. A lot of this work of building her newsletter, building her community around her. And she's been using, I don't know if she's been using BookFunnel specifically, but she's been giving away. I think she's been using BookFunnel to build her newsletter over the last year or so that when her memoir launches, she'll launch to a community of people who know who she is. Another option as well is Story Origin. So Story Origin is free right now. So I definitely encourage you guys to get in on that one. Their giveaways, their author giveaways are not as strong as the BookFunnel one is. But if you do want to if price is an issue, obviously Story Origin is free for right now. Definitely do that. There's really no limit to what you give away. I give away stuff all the time. So that's kind of my MO. What is Linda's last name? It's Linda Kurth, Kurth, I think, is her last name. All right. So next thing, driving people into our marketing funnels. Obviously, we want to focus on the funnel. You want to stop paying for access to your readers. So that's a big thing on the social media sites. If you built up a page, you now have to pay to get access to those readers. That's a big issue. And who knows what's going to happen down the line with any other third-party site, whether it's YouTube, or whether it's social media or any other third-party channel, TikTok, Heidi, whatever you're doing with TikTok, who knows what's going to happen with TikTok, right? You have no idea what's going to happen. So don't trust your readership and your community to a third-party site. Now, that doesn't mean you have to stop doing it. Absolutely not. But definitely make sure you give the option for people to come back to your community, something that you can capture yourself. That is not at the whim of another company. Like a good example is MailChimp changed a lot of their rules in the last few years, and that really upset me. That's one of the reasons why I went to SendFox. They changed a lot of the features, and it really limited what I could do. If you have a big presence on Facebook, and all of a sudden your reach is now 1% of what it used to be, and Zuckerberg wants you to pay $5 for that, that could be a little frustrating. What if TikTok gets shut down? Who knows, right? You want to bring in people while it's running now into a more safer community. I consider that to be your newsletter, but you can also move people from one social media to the next, or you can move someone to Medium or Wattpad or whatever it might be. You want to bring people into your community so that you have the control. And your website is a good example of where to link to, right? If you have a compelling website that when somebody lands on it, they want to sign up and be in your community, you can link that on your social media posts. Whether if you have Twitter, you pin your giveaway at the top. If you have social media like a Facebook, you can pin a post to the top. So whenever somebody comes there, they see, hey, there's a free thing I can get, or I want to go to this person's website and see what they're all about, right? So focus on funneling people back to you, and you being your website is the best thing you can do. What changes did I not like on MailChimp? So MailChimp used to be free. I think it's still free up to 2,000 people. They used to allow you to have unlimited lists. So you could have a number of lists. And I used to manage like ARC giveaways and different onboarding sequences from different lists. And I could manage multiple, like if you write multiple genres, I can manage my urban fantasy and my horror list separately. And I can send newsletters respectively to those lists. They took away that feature, and then they also, I think, took away the autoresponder feature to some level. And so I couldn't do an autoresponder on each list. So if I had a giveaway, if I say I had 3 lead magnets on BookFunnel, I could not funnel them into separate lists with separate autoresponders. And so that was a big thing that I didn't like. So they changed a little bit about their business. So that's why I moved over to SendFox. And I'll put that here in the link for you guys. www.sendfox.com. Who knows? SendFox could become the next MailChimp, and I'll have to find somebody else. But right now, that's where I'm at, and I'm really pushing a lot of people over there. I think there's a few people in the group who have made that switch as well. Okay, so what do you say? Well, Matt, you're telling me nobody wants to hear what I say. That's a little bit of the fear, a little bit of anxiety. A lot of people talk about that. I don't know why. I don't know how to market. I don't want to market. How do I find fans? It's really hard to do, right? And there's a lot of excuses, and we have a lot of fears. I don't have enough time. I don't want to do it. But building your community is yours, and it's hard to outsource that to somebody else. So that is a concern you want to do. Is if you're asking somebody else to do the work for you, that can be a little scary, because that person could leave. Then you don't know how to manage that, and then it starts to die away. So it's really nice to be able to manage your own community. So managing your own website and your own newsletter is actually a very easy thing to do. It doesn't take up a lot of time. And if you put your funnels in the proper place, people will continuously come into your, if you're out there marketing yourself, people will come into the funnels properly and then go right onto your newsletter list, and you can just keep churning that out. Okay, your website should reflect this focus, this idea around community, funneling the strangers. So you go out there, there's 100,000 people. 100,000 people are not going to want to join your list. There may only be 500. That's great. You need to go out and find those 500 people, and you do that by making compelling content that has a nice funnel. All right, it's hard for people to market. I get that. They have a little imposter syndrome. That's very common, but you got to find the confidence within yourself to do it. It was hard enough to write a book, but you did it. It was hard to put yourself out there, but you published, right? Those are all scary things. That keeps 90% of writers from doing anything, right? We realize this is not just a hobby, it's a business. So you need to require the work and the commitment that goes in parallel to that, right? You're the boss. Nobody's telling you have to do it. So I think a lot of people have to get over the fact that you're not punching a clock. The boss isn't looking over your shoulder. You have to do it yourself. You have to do it with other people. And that's one of the reasons why we have a co-op here, is we can learn from each other. It is important to do that. So how do I get through a lot of this stuff? So I do a lot of planning. So I like to quote unquote plan through the fear. So I have anxiety about sending out newsletters all the time and putting my books out there, publishing a new short story or novel. That's a really scary thing, right? I still have anxiety about that. I still wait for the dreaded 1 star to come in, and we all do. But one of the ways I get through that is I like to plan. So like, for example, with planning my newsletter, when I'm doing a lot of promotion through my website and I'm capturing people into my newsletter, I have to make that thing now. I have to do that community building. And so for me, I do about 12 to 16 newsletters a year. Right. And so I double up about 5 announcements. So I do short stories or a new book release, and I do 2 announcements there. And I tend to have about 2 to 4 additional announcements through the year that can kind of push me out to 16. If I don't have those extra things, I can probably manage at about 12. So it's once a month. One of the things that I do, and you may do something differently, and that's okay. If you're a memoirist, you may put out blog posts. If you're a certain type of, like Linda's doing a lot of book reviews. That's a really good way to stay connected to the community and stay relevant. I use short stories. So I send out short stories to people, and then I publish them on Amazon, and that's how I use that to stay connected. Another thing I do is I draft a lot. So I draft, whether it's blog posts, videos, whatever it might be, I draft my content out ahead of time and I schedule it. So I don't have to worry about it. There's not that anxiety of having to get out a newsletter tomorrow. So for me, I'm always about 6 emails ahead. I use the same format. I use the same marketing images. I just swap out the content. Like the simple little couple paragraphs on my newsletter. It's super easy. It's super manageable. And then I can begin to focus on other things. I use Canva BookBrush for all my graphics, and I use BookFunnel to grow my list. A lot of the BookFunnel stuff takes people to my website. So again, I've focused the funnel down to my website, and I'm able to get people to click and buy or click and subscribe, whatever that might be. And I do about 2 promos per month, so per newsletter. All right. And then I've been using autoresponders to kind of winnow the chaff. So when you have a funnel, you want to be able to winnow out people who are just getting something for free. They'll do it for you, but you got to give them the option to do it, which is like the unsubscribe button. All right. So the next thing is grouping your work in the best way possible. So this applies to authors probably who have medium to large catalogs, you know, and maybe somebody who does additional content creation. So if you're doing, say, for example, let's say you're an artist and you're doing YouTube videos and blog posts and you have a lot of like additional content beyond just your books, you may want to group that content as another thing for people to be interested in, right? Like for example, my podcast will have the podcast, we'll have our resource guides that are available for people to get, but also we have a growing YouTube channel that goes in conjunction with that. So those are the three things that I would want people to see, that if somebody, comes to my website, they go, oh, okay, he's got a podcast. I can go subscribe there. Oh, he has resource guides. Let me go see what that's about. And here's my YouTube channel. Okay. Yes, I have a big long thing about dino erotica at the bottom, so it's kind of funny. So the thing that I always like to do is like I want to put out my best work forward. So where should people start? Some people may not need to see my entire podcast catalog, right? Something that I might do is say, hey, here's my most popular podcast, right? You should go listen to this. And if you like this, then you're going to download my other 75 episodes, right? But here's my most popular thing. Here's my most popular YouTube video. Here's my most popular book, right? This is the thing that people love the most. And you want people to kind of like get into like the most bestest thing ever so they fall in love with you, and then they'll go out and consume the rest of the things you do. This helps to limit those options and take away that paralysis analysis that we talked about, take away a little bit of that fear. Put them into your best stuff. That could be a lead magnet. That could be your best series. That could be your best YouTube video. Whatever it might be, focus on your best stuff. Don't waste your time on the margins. And my little thing at the bottom is kind of pertaining to the margins. I have this term that I coined while I was making these slides called marginal thinking paralysis, MTP. People always think about, oh, I'm afraid of losing that one subscriber, right? When they should be focusing on capturing and keeping the 100 people who just subscribed, right? Don't worry about, making sure that one person, gets connected to that one short story that they would love, right? If they like what you're doing, they'll find it, but you're working in volume here. You're not working on onesie twosie numbers. When you're doing book funnel promotions, you're getting hundreds of subscribers, right? Focus on making sure they stay, because that's the bulk of the people who are coming in. Don't worry as much on the margins. People will stay, people will go. It's going to happen. Don't worry about it. Make the thing that you're doing the most compelling the most compelling thing possible. All right. John says it's all good. Yes, John, everything is good. If you're writing nothing but good stuff, it's hard to make a choice. So one of the ideas is collapse the any advice on how to manage an ARC team? Yes, I can. Let me get through this, Diana, and I will answer your ARC question. Thing you want to do is collapse the options. So instead of showing 50 books, you show 3 lead magnets. Get people into your series, right? Instead of feeding them into your podcast, obviously most popular thing. If you're a social media focus like Tony is, like get them onto your Facebook page, right? Even though I said, keep them on your newsletter, get them onto your webpage. If you are doing a lot of work, get them onto the platform that you're doing the most on, and then they'll come back and subscribe. Simple pointers and things to your other books are good as well, but really focus on what you're spending the most time. Your website is a lead generation machine. So you want to capture emails, which was our website focus number 1, right? Get the emails, drive readers into a series, that was focus 2, and promote your most active or popular content, which is number 3. So as people fall into the funnel, you want to get them all the way down so that they're loyal, they're going to buy your next book. Do you need 100,000 people on your newsletter? That'd be amazing. I'd love that. But if I have 5,000 people who are buying every single book that I put out, I can have a good business with that, right? Making $2 or $3 every 4 months from 5,000 people is a pretty decent author business, right? So you really want to focus on quality, get the most quality people all the way to the bottom. All right. So let's talk a little bit about design considerations. And I will wet my throat here. Let me answer the question about the ARC team. Any advice on how to manage an ARC team? So, an ARC team is an advanced review copies. So this is basically when you have a new thing coming out, you want to get this to a list or a subset of your list or a subset of people, wherever they are. Most of the time they're on your newsletter, and you want to get them to read your content early and leave reviews. Right, that's kind of what an ARC team is there for, and also to catch things that maybe you missed. Maybe they catch some typos, things of that nature. When you're just starting out, your entire newsletter should be your ARC team. If you're like below 500-600 subscribers, you probably want to use all those people. You don't necessarily want to segment out like 10 people. You got kind of a small list. It depends on what your open rate is. If you're in like a 30 or kind of an active out of the 600 to 500, you're looking at like 200 active people. Maybe 10% of those people might be interested in being an ARC team. At that point, your numbers are so low, just let everybody be an ARC team. That's something I do. I know, Diana, I think you're on my newsletter. I do that with my list, and my list is like 2,500 right now, and it's been growing. I pruned it way down, and then I've been building it back up the last year. I just send out my link to see if anybody wants to get an advanced copy of whatever I've produced, short story, novel, it doesn't matter. Very often I get about 100, 150 people who take me up on that. It's actually been growing. The most recent one's 150. I think last year was about 30 or 40, so it's been growing, which is nice. And then I move those people into a new list, and then I send them a newsletter, separately, and says, hey, thanks for signing up for my ARC book or my ARC short story. Just to let you know, it'll be available on Amazon in a week. I hope you enjoy it. And I always try to leave enough lead time so it's reasonable that people can actually read the thing in the time frame. Do you send out a direct link out? You send out a direct link out, not to an autoresponder who sees the opens. So there's an option in BookFunnel, and we'll get in. Maybe Diana, maybe we could table a lot of this. Maybe we could talk afterwards. But I'll bring up a lot of this during the BookFunnel talk in a couple months. Okay, cool. If you have any questions, just send me a side email and we can talk about it. But anyway, like once I have those people on the ARC list, I just let them know ahead of time when the book is available, and I can get a couple of reviews out of them. That's really nice. So that when I finally launch the book to the list, I've got like 2 or 3 reviews up there, and it's not like 0. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Hopefully over time it grows and grows, and I can launch with like 10 reviews or 15 reviews. That would be really nice. And so people, it helps to solve the social proof issue. And that's kind of a wonky thing to do with your newsletter, maybe not as interested in your website. But it is something you can do once you have a good, effective website that is pulling people into, say, a newsletter. All right. Important thing, design considerations you want to do. Cool on BookFunnel. I'm still kind of lost there. Okay. Funnel talk that's coming up. I think I just got pushed a little bit, but I will be doing a whole BookFunnel talk. And if enough people guilt me, I will put together an entire video course on BookFunnel. But you have to guilt me into it. I have it planned, but I'll guilt me into that one. All right, so design considerations for your website. Guilt. You want to minimize your content, so you want to minimize the number of things in there, but maximize the graphics, the professionalism of the graphics, the images, and we'll see that in the examples that we'll get to here in a few minutes. You'll see the graphics are really professional, really beautiful and compelling, and use those platforms that do that, like BookBrush or Canva, that can produce those really beautiful graphics that will help compel people into clicking on things. Align the fonts. So a lot of us have very specific fonts that are in our book covers. It would be really cool to use those same fonts on your website, so that when people look at your book or they see some graphic on your social media, when they get to your website, they see the exact same font. Okay, so there's some continuity there no matter where they go. Obviously your marketing images, and then your cover art carries through your design. So sometimes we have a very beautiful image as part of our graphic, and that carries through into the design of our website. We may actually use it as kind of a soft background. We may use it in some marketing materials. We may crop certain areas of the image, and you see that carry through. That's a good way to bring that continuity through your website. So people come from somewhere, they saw something The question is, are they seeing the exact same thing? Okay. Next thing, popular concepts. So sans serif fonts are kind of popular. They're kind of clean and elegant. So if you're looking for something that's kind of clean and elegant, look into those type of fonts. People are now doing a little bit of typography with effects. So they're, I think the image there on the right side, you can see there's kind of camel casey type of design. Obviously, it has to flow into your style and to the genre that you're writing in. But you can kind of play with some typography there. Some people are using emojis in their blog posts. I don't necessarily like emojis, but I am seeing a lot of emojis in like email headers. So when it comes into my inbox, I see emojis there. I see emojis in blog posts now, in not only in the body of the content, but also in the title. That's not necessarily my style, but if that's something you're interested in, people are doing that. It doesn't need to be topical. Some people are using, I'm an emoji junkie. Some people are using a lot of black outlines now to kind of divide the section of their website. And there's some good themes out there. I think the new WordPress theme, the 2021 theme, does a lot of black outline or allows you to do black outline, which is nice from a visual standpoint. They do minimize the text, but maximize the message. And that's kind of that's an easy thing to say, but that's, people make millions of dollars being copy editors for, 3 or 4 word choice, 3 or 4 words for a message. So that can be a very difficult thing, but minimize the text, maximize your message, see what other authors are doing, see if you can not copy what they're doing, but emulate what they're doing, and then maybe riff on that yourself. Because a really, good big time author is paying for a copywriter to do that kind of writing their blurbs, writing the messaging. They're paying somebody to do that, and they're paying big money for that. You can kind of reverse engineer what they're doing and kind of see if you can incorporate some of that into your own stuff. All right. Don't tell, use your covers, show your covers. Don't tell about your covers. That's like the show, don't tell. We're very, familiar with that as authors. Your color design, with the colors, and your marketing obviously should flow. We talked about that before. Simplify your navigation. I like less clickies. And I just try to stay as, less content is better, but do try to minimize the number of things to click on. Really focus on what you're doing there. And obviously a clear call to action. That just kind of goes back with what we've been talking about on your website. So let's talk a little bit about unique concepts. Retro fonts are kind of back. So if you're thinking about a new cover designs, retro fonts are kind of fun. I have that in the kind of the top right. Horizontal scrolling images, because a lot of people are realizing a lot of our readers are finding us via mobile, and having horizontally scrolling images is good for that. And in one of our examples, we'll see that. Doing 3D stuff, so 3D book covers is really nice. You can use BookBrush to do that for yourself, and that's a good way to go. Muted colors, so you can kind of see that on the right with the kind of the fuchsia and then kind of purple. Kind of muted colors is a kind of a style in the kind of the literary area. So you can kind of think about if that's the genre you're writing in, you can kind of go in that direction. Blur effects, so Gaussian blurs as kind of backdrops. You can see that in the example there with the welcome. You can see the Gaussian blur with the orange and the creams. That's kind of a popular thing to do. You can set that as a background for your entire website, and that kind of carries through as the person is scrolling. It's kind of a popular thing to do. Also, dark mode. A lot of people are liking to go dark with white. So this is white text on black backgrounds, or not necessarily black, but very, very dark, like charcoal dark. Another cool thing to do if that's kind of your genre. Obviously, that's like a in memoriam type of thing. The example there I have at the bottom, but you can do that with like your, if you kind of an edgy book, or if you're kind of like a Chuck Palahniuk type of writer, that might be a good look for you. And obviously, the new WordPress theme can do a lot of these things for you. So I would encourage you to look into that, and that's a free WordPress theme. And it takes advantage of the new block style editing backend that is available for WordPress. So very powerful tool to use. Okay, so let's just go through a couple examples here, and I have them all pulled up here on my browser. So first thing I want to do is look at Shane Silver. So this guy's in my genre, kind of urban fantasy. He has really cool covers, really good covers, really kind of fits the dude urban fantasy genre. And the first thing you see is he kind of has a nice mailing list opt-in, sign up, you get a free novella. He's a compelling image. I think it's a little pixelated. Let me see if I shrink it down. Yeah. So if I shrink it down a little bit, It's a little bit better, but obviously with my big monitor here, it gets a little pixelated. I don't think he cares because he has horizontal scrolling here enabled on his website, but I cannot do it because I'm not in a mobile mobile platform. So, and I don't think I can even drag it. So it's kind of wild. But if you're on a mobile device, you can scroll with your thumb side to side, and each and every one of these is a clickable option. So kind of a cool thing. You can see him in his kind of hipster outfit and his nice goatee, and then coming soon, and then just a couple little of other things. So you can see very simple, very clear call to action, gets people into what he wants them to do, which is newsletter, tells a little bit about himself. Here's what's coming up. He doesn't really care because this is like book 900 in his series, book 15 in the Nate Templeton series. So he really doesn't care if new people are finding this. He wants them to get him into book 1, which he's trying to give away right up here. I can switch to mobile view in Chrome. Yes. Let me see. Yeah, developer tools. Not going to do it. It'll scare everyone away. Okay, so we'll go here. Actually, Control-Shift-T. We'll bring Shay Silvers back. Next one is Adam Neville. He's real famous. He wrote a book called, where is it? Here it is. Ritual, which was made into a Netflix movie. He's kind of a horror writer. He is a horror writer. You can see here, he's a traditionally published author. And again, first thing you see here is a free sign up. And if we click on that, it takes actually to an EE Pearl website, which I think is down right now. That is a MailChimp sign up. So he has a MailChimp landing page to get you to sign up. He has his new kind of short story collection here. He has a nice grid layout, little thing about his, the fact that he's a Netflix author movie guy. That's kind of cool. I definitely put that up at the top of my website. Next person is Mark Dawson. I talk a lot about him. He doesn't give a crap about his books. He just wants you to get on his newsletter. He lists them here up at the top, but the only thing he has on his front page is a picture of, I think this is Milton, which was his character, his James Bond character. And he just wants you to get onto his newsletter. So really, really, simple, high quality image. And really kind of his focus is the newsletter. Secondary is all the books in the series that he has. So it's kind of a nice look. If you are going to focus on one thing, I might be moving in this direction personally because I do so much. I'm focusing so much on my newsletter. Here's another one. Miguel Riena. It's kind of I think it's a Spanish author. Super simple website, traditionally published. Nice links up at the top right. Beautiful, kind of a 3D scrolling image here on the front page. Links to the social media. Sign up to the newsletter. Super simple. Doesn't have to worry about it. Sleeps well at night. He probably has a nice publisher doing a lot of work for him. But you can see a very simple, clean website. Veronica Roth. She did the Divergent series. So again, she's got a nice scrolling image. Very simple. Here's a couple books. You can see all her books here, but she's just showing you the things that are most important, the newest book she has, some news, and then she's done. And then she really doesn't care about her newsletter down here, which is kind of gross and ugly looking, and she should pay me money to fix that for her. So anyway, so you can see very simple, clean website. David Sedaris, another author, he has his new book. He has links to where you can buy those books, a little bit about himself, maybe some news, up and coming events, some audio things. I think Hachette does his website for him. I think it's down here at the bottom. So they build, Hachette Book Group. So I'm sure they're building his website for him. But you can, again, see it's very simple, very straightforward. He's a traditionally published author. So he doesn't really care about his newsletter, and he's got kind of name recognition. So he has different concerns than like we do. But you can see he's kind of following that simplified, clean, idea of a website. And again, this is being done by a big publishing company, so they know what works. You can see that. So here's another Roxanne. I think it's Roxanne Gay. Anyway, kind of like a literary poetry author. She's got a bunch of nice pictures, very simple website. Again, very simple, clean, learning about her books, nice banner, connect with her on social media, very focused and very simple. Still no focus on the newsletter, but some people don't care about the newsletter, and that's something I care about. So that's where a little bit of discontinuity comes from. But understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why you're not doing it, at least as long as you can justify it. So here we have kind of like an urban fantasy author. Nice little scrolling, high quality graphics, 3D artwork. 3D artwork again. Here's a couple books. You can click on it, see the new thing. You can join her newsletter down there. All right. Very simple. Here's a couple another ones. Susan Denard. Again, grid format, focusing on the things that matter the most about this person, for writers, her latest releases. Here's a few of her books. Here's her newsletter at the bottom, and then she's done. And she even tells you what theme she uses here. The Themify WordPress. So I always like to go at the bottom of websites because a lot of times they'll tell you what they use. And so here's a Themify. So if you're looking for a similar theme as she has, you can buy it here probably for 50, 60 bucks. Here's a romance writer. So nice script font at the top. She's a best-selling author. Obviously, if I was a best-selling author at New York Times, I'd put that at the top too. Has books across, nice scrolling kind of display, high graphics, where to buy them. She doesn't really list all her books. Just go to my author page and buy my books. A few little information, join my newsletter, and she's done. So again, very simple, very focused, not wasting a lot of time. This woman, I think, is a inspirational kind of like children's author book writer. So nice high quality image. I don't think it tells what she does right up front. You would think she might be a literary author, but she's kind of a watercolory, art book for kids. So I think maybe she's got some problems, but you can see that she's got a very simple idea around her website. And then I was just, right before this, I was looking at the new 2021 theme for WordPress. So you can kind of see what it looks like, and you can modify and adapt and change colors and do all the fun things. But again, you can get kind of the same look as those websites using a simple theme that's free and provided by WordPress. If you're not on WordPress, obviously you can't use this. So, all right, I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions? So I'm under an hour, which I think is really good. And again, this is the third talk on websites that we've done in the last, about a year or so. So I encourage you to listen to those previous talks. They're a little bit longer. But again, just thinking about what you're doing with your website, I think is really important. So Edward has a question. On my website, WordPress theme or Bluehost is making comments are closed for this post. Lock on my comments section. He'll send me a message about this email. So visitors always blah, blah, blah. How can I unlock this? Yeah. So Edward, this is something in your settings. Let me see if I can pull it up. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to just drop them in. I'll try to go to the Writers Co-op thing here. Backend. So Edward, if this is the Writers Co-op backend, I think there's something under, let's see, appearance. There's probably something under settings. And there's probably something on comments. No. It's something right in this area, Edward. Once you log into your website, you're in the WordPress backend. There may be it might be under appearance. No, definitely not appearance. Customize.
Yeah, I tried a lot of those. I've been successful in cleaning up a lot of stuff, but I can't find the one place where they've locked up the comments.
Okay.
So if anybody has any suggestions, or if this has happened to anybody else, I'll be happy to.
Is it under discussion here?
No,
here it is in email.
Is it under an individual post? Because when you write a post, it seems to me that there's a thing at the bottom that you can click. One of the little boxes at the bottom under the blog post area.
It might be on, Edward, is it on every single blog post?
What's that?
Is it on every single blog post? Or just...
No, it allowed a couple of comments, and then it suddenly started blocking. And I'm wondering if I set something or they automatically set something when they're setting up the defaults. So
okay. So Edward, I would look here in settings, discussion,
okay.
And Joseph caught that as well. There are a lot of comment regarding options that you've selected here.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you check out under settings, discussion, and see if there's something that's checked here that you don't want to be checked, or something that is checked that you might want to modify. There are some different options on the drop downs, so you may have something that is enabled or disabled that you don't want.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Not a problem. Happy to help. Does anybody have any other questions? Any concerns, fears? Do we want to do a little? Does anyone want to show their website and get critiqued? Oh, the crickets, deafening. It's almost like a grit-lit novel here.
Sirgoyan.coffeetown.com.
All right. Going coffeetown.com. So you said .coffeetown.com?
Yeah.
All right. All right, we got Tony. Bart the Bat World. All right. We're pulling you guys all up. And anybody have any other questions on the talk specifically? Otherwise, I'll turn the recording off so nobody gets embarrassed or anything. I don't want that to happen. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.